Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our channel. What happens when one shocking sentence changes three lives forever? Imagine standing in a room where two men are waiting and the words "I'm pregnant" suddenly turn everything upside down. Katie Logan gathers Bill Spencer and Carter Walton at the Spencer estate for what seems like a serious conversation. But instead of a simple discussion, she drops a life changing bombshell. She's pregnant. The problem? Neither man knows if his father, and that uncertainty instantly ignites tension, emotions, and a complicated battle of hearts. Katie Logan had been quietly wrestling with a storm of emotions for a long time. Her history with Bill Spencer was anything but simple. For years, Bill had been the great love of her life, the man she once believed she would spend forever with. But their relationship had also been filled with chaos, betrayals, arguments, passionate reunions, and painful separations. That emotional roller coaster eventually pushed Katie to seek something different, something calmer and more stable. That's when Carter entered her life. Carter offered Katie something she hadn't experienced in years: peace. He was dependable, thoughtful, and deeply respectful of her feelings. After everything she had endured with Bill, that sense of security meant the world to her. Slowly, Katie began rebuilding her life and imagining a future that wasn't defined by heartbreak and uncertainty. Being with Carter felt safe, and for the first time in a long while, Katie allowed herself to believe that stability could be real. But emotions aren't always that simple. Even though Katie was trying to move forward with Carter, her bond with Bill never fully disappeared. They shared years of history together, countless memories, and most importantly, their son. That connection had never truly faded. No matter how hard either of them tried to move on, there was always an invisible thread pulling them back toward each other. Meanwhile, Bill Spencer was going through a period of reflection himself, known across Los Angeles as the powerful and intimidating dollar bill. He had built a media empire through sheer determination, fearlessness, and a willingness to take risks others wouldn't dare consider. For most of his life, business had been his main focus. Power, success, and control were the things that drove him forward. But recently, something had begun to shift inside him. Bill found himself thinking less about corporate conquests and more about the people in his life, especially Katie. Watching her grow closer to Carter stirred feelings he thought he had buried long ago. Jealousy started creeping in, even though Bill tried to hide it behind his usual confident attitude. Seeing Katie potentially build a future with another man was harder for him than he wanted to admit. Carter, on the other hand, believed he was finally getting a chance at real happiness. As the loyal attorney who had long worked with the Forrester family, Carter had experienced plenty of disappointment in his romantic life. His past relationships had left him cautious and guarded. But Katie was different. Her strength, intelligence, and warmth captured his heart completely. Being with her made Carter feel hopeful about the future again. Then everything changed one morning. Katie contracted both Bill and Carter and asked them to meet her at the Spencer estate. The request alone raised eyebrows. It wasn't exactly normal for Katie to invite both men to the same place at the same time. Bill assumed it might have something to do with their son or perhaps unfinished business between them. Carter wondered if Katie wanted to clarify where their relationship was heading. Neither man was prepared for what was about to happen. Katie stood waiting in the living room, clearly nervous. Her hands trembled slightly, and the tension in the air was almost impossible to ignore. Bill noticed immediately that something was wrong. Katie usually carried herself with calm confidence, but that composure had been replaced by visible anxiety. Carter could sense it too, and gently asked if she was okay. Katie took a deep breath And then she finally said the words that changed everything. I'm pregnant. The room instantly fell into stunned silence. Bill's eyes widened as the shock hit him, while Carter looked completely frozen. Like time itself had paused, neither man spoke for several seconds. Even Bill, who was normally quick with bold reactions and sharp comments, couldn't find a single word. Carter stared at Katie, trying to make sure he had heard correctly. Katie slowly nodded, confirming the truth. Finally, Bill broke the silence. But this time, the usual confidence in his voice was gone. Instead, there was uncertainty, something rarely seen from a man like him. He asked the question that immediately hung heavy in the air. Is the baby mine? Carter's expression tightened instantly. He loved Katie deeply, but he also knew the complicated history she shared with Bill. The truth was unavoidable. There was real uncertainty about who the father could be. Katie explained that she had only recently discovered the pregnancy herself. Because of the timing, she couldn't be sure who the father was without medical testing. During a period when her emotions were conflicted and she had shared intimate moments with both men, she had been torn between Carter's stability and the powerful emotional connection she still felt with Bill. Bill began pacing the room, clearly overwhelmed. The possibility that Katie might be carrying his child stirred powerful emotions inside him. Despite his ruthless reputation in business, Bill cared deeply about family. The thought of another child, especially with Katie, forced him to confront feelings he had tried to suppress. Carter's reaction was quieter but just as intense. He remained close to Katie, his face filled with concern and uncertainty. For him, the pregnancy wasn't just about fatherhood, it was about what it might mean for his future with Katie. If Bill turned out to be the father, would Katie feel drawn back to him again? Katie could see the emotional storm forming between the two men, and it broke her heart. She never wanted to create such a chaos, but the truth had to come out. Her pregnancy was real, and it would affect all of their lives moving forward. It didn't take long for the news to spread throughout Los Angeles. Powerful social circles at Forrester Creations whispers began circulating almost immediately. Everyone knew what that whenever Katie, Bill, and Carter were involved, in something dramatic, it rarely stayed quiet for long. Brooke Logan was one of the first family members to learn the news. As Katie's sister, Brooke rushed to support her. She understood better than anyone how complicated Katie's relationship with Bill had always been. Brooke asked Katie the same question Bill had asked earlier. Did she know who the father was? Katie admitted she still didn't know. That uncertainty created tension everywhere she went. Bill suddenly became more attentive than ever, constantly checking in on Katie and offering support. Deep down, he quietly hoped the baby might be his. Carter remained loyal and caring, determined to stay by Katie's side no matter what the truth turned out to be. But inside, he couldn't ignore the fear that Bill might once again pull Katie back into his orbit. Days passed, and the anticipation surrounding the paternity question only grew stronger. Bill found himself imagining what it would be like if the child were his. Despite their rocky past, the idea sparked hope that maybe he and Katie could find their way back to each other. Carter struggled with his own thoughts. He loved Katie enough to accept that the baby might not be his, but the idea of Bill becoming permanently tied to her life again filled him with dread. Katie felt the pressure from both sides. All she wanted was clarity for herself, for the baby, and for the man caught in the middle of his emotional storm. A paternity test would eventually provide answers, but until then, uncertainty ruled every moment. Eventually, the tension exploded one evening when Bill and Carter confronted each other directly. The rivalry that had been building since Katie's announcement finally boiled over. Bill insisted that if the baby was his, He will always be part of Katie's life. Carter fired back that he loved Katie and intended to stay by her side. Regardless of the outcome, right in the middle of that argument, Katie walked in. Her emotions finally burst through the surface. She told both men that her pregnancy was not a competition between them. This wasn't about pride or ego, it was about the future of her child. Her words stopped them both in their tracks. For the first time since the shocking announcement, Bill and Carter seemed to recognize the reality of the situation. Katie was the one carrying the child. She was the one dealing with the emotional pressure and uncertainty. As time moved forward, the Logan family gathered around Katie with full support. Meanwhile, both Bill and Carter braced themselves for the moment when the truth would finally be revealed. Because in a world where secrets never stay hidden forever, Katie's simple but powerful words, "I'm pregnant," were only the beginning of a story filled with even more drama, heartbreak, and life changing revelations still waiting to unfold. This revelation doesn't just create tension between three people, it sends shockwaves through multiple families. The uncertainty over the baby's father threatens to reopen old wounds between Katie and Bill while putting Carter in a painful position where his father, with Katie, suddenly feels uncertain. Relationships that seemed stable are now hanging by a thread. And until the paternity test reveals the truth, every interaction between these characters will be loaded with emotion, jealousy, and fear. It also places Katie at the emotional center of the storm, forcing her to balance the expectations and feelings of two very different men while preparing for motherhood. Honestly, this situation shows just how complicated love can become when history and emotions refuse to stay in the past. Katie tried to move forward with Carter because he represented peace and reliability, but her connected when Beale was never fully resolved. When those unresolved feelings collide with something as serious as a pregnancy, it creates the perfect recipe for drama. Personally, I think Katie deserves support rather than pressure from either man. Right now, the focus should be on her well being and the baby, not on who wins her heart. So now everything comes down to one huge question: who is the father of Katie's baby? Will it be Bill potentially pulling Katie back into his intense world, or Carter, the man who offered her the ability she's been searching for? And if Bill is the father, could that completely change Katie's future again? I want to hear what you think. Who do you believe the father will be, Bill or Carter? And if you were Katie, what decision would you make moving forward? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more dramatic updates and deep dives into the biggest moments from the bold and the beautiful.